going to talk about how we use a human behaviour change approach and targeted free cat desexing to manage unowned cats at RSPCA New South Wales. Every year, thousands of stray cats arrive at our RSPCA shelters. In Australia, we still have very high euthanasia rates for cats in many council pounds. Unowned cats often have poor welfare, they have high mortality rates, they have high incidence of infectious disease. And to give you an idea of the scale of cat overpopulation we're dealing with, around half of all of the pet cats in Australia were passively acquired, often by people just having a stray kitten show up on their doorstep. Okay, so we have thousands of unowned cats, and we've established that this is a problem. What does this have to do with human behaviour? I'm sure you're wondering. I'm going to talk you through our approach, which uses a human behaviour lens, and I'll give you 2 examples of how we put that into practice. The big objective of our unowned cat management is to make sure every cat has a safe and permanent home and someone committed to their ongoing care. So to do this, the first thing we need to do is understand the problem in the local area. This basically means undertaking some stakeholder consultation to find out what are all the factors contributing to the unowned cat challenges in the area. Next, we want to engage all the stakeholders who are involved with unowned cats. Number 3, we want to define exactly whose behaviour we want to change. Then we need to define exactly what do we want them to do. And lastly, number 5, as for any program, we want to monitor our progress. First, let's head to Parramatta, which is right in the geographical centre of Sydney. It's a very large council, it's suburban and urban, it has a very mixed demographic. So first we'll start at David's house. Let's understand the context. David migrated to Australia from Iraq about 20 years ago. He's in his 70s and he has terminal cancer. And he lives in a housing commission unit, so government housing. About 15 years ago, David had one pregnant stray cat turn up and he started to feed her. And that one cat quickly turned into many cats and has become a relatively stable population of about 30 to 50 cats. So at this colony, it produces a pretty reliable annual harvest of kittens who make their way to rescue groups, to pounds, to our shelter. And this is a colony who the council and our RSPCA inspectorate constantly get complaints about for more than 10 years. They periodically go out and trap cats and euthanize them or rehome them, but we've never been able to get this situation under control. Meanwhile, relationships between David and his neighbours have become increasingly strained and David has become very socially isolated. So this is a scenario we come across all the time. An overwhelmed caregiver with multiple cats living in and around their home. And note that when you ask David whose cats these are, he'll say, "They're not my cats, they're just stray cats." So we started working with this colony and getting to know the area. And as we did that, we discovered David was not the only person taking care of these cats. Next door to David's apartment is a pizza shop. And the staff of the pizza shop also noticed these cats, hungry cats hanging around, and they routinely feed the scraps from the pizza shop to the cats and the ibises. So another really common scenario we come across is people who are feeding unowned cats at their workplace. And then just the next street over lives Shirley. She also lives in Housing Commission. She's on a disability pension and she's also quite socially isolated. She has one cat. This is Princess, a lovely old lady, 11 years old. She's been neutered, she's registered, and she was an indoor-only cat. But last summer, Shirley had these 2 turn up at her doorstep as little tiny kittens. Now, I hear about this scenario all the time in clinical practice as a vet as well. People who tell me their cat was just dropped off on their doorstep when they're about 6 weeks old, or they had a stray mum turn up who had kittens under their house or in the shed or in the wardrobe, and then the mum disappeared again when the kittens were a few weeks old. And it probably happens all the time. Pregnant mums from one colony like David's disperse around the neighbourhood, drop off their kittens in the surrounding area, and probably 90% of the time the community sorts it out. Someone adopts them, or takes them to the pound, or takes them to a rescue group, or gives them to a friend, and they just become owned cats. I certainly have done this myself twice. But then there are those few cats who find people who can't do all of those things. People like Shirley. So people who are not working, they're socially isolated, maybe they can't drive, maybe they have poor health or mobility, maybe they live in insecure housing that doesn't allow pets, or they just can't afford to get the cat neutered. Basically, they don't have the resources or the social networks to find homes for these cats. These are people who might also really appreciate the company of the cats and having someone to dote on and care about. But fast forward 2 years and you have 20, 30, 50 cats and an overwhelmed carer. From getting to know a whole bunch of these different carers in different places all over the state, most report that they have at least tried reaching out to the council or to RSPCA at some point about the stray cat that's turned up. And they're either told there's nothing the council can do, they're told they have to catch the cat and bring them in, or they're told to just stop feeding them. So anyway, now Shirley has 3 pet cats who she's trying to care for, which is probably 2 more than she really wanted and 2 more than she can really cope with. But you can see now it becomes really hard for Shirley to keep her cats contained, for example. So another common scenario where you've got a semi-owner, someone who's feeding 1 or 2 cats at their home. We've done some research into semi-owners, so people who are caring for cats they don't consider their cats, unowned cats. And our research and our work in the field is fairly consistent that most, if not all, unowned cats are cared for by someone, often multiple people who quickly notice when they arrive in an area, they notice they're hungry and they want to help them. These are really compassionate people. They're acting empathetically to care for cats who are not their responsibility. So this is a really important target audience for our behaviour change approach to unowned cat management, the cat semi-owners. Okay, so let's have a look at Parramatta. Understand the problem. In this instance, the problem is barriers to accessing services, and the main service we're talking about is surrender and desexing or neutering. Who are our stakeholders? Mainly the semi-owners, but also the people who can help us remove some of the barriers so that Shirley can access the services she needs. So council, local vets, RSPCA. Who's our target audience? Semi-owners. But you might have noticed there are a couple of other extra targets in step 2 that we'll talk about in our next example. Now let's define our target behaviour. What do we want Shirley to do? We know Shirley faces a whole range of barriers to undertaking a behaviour like getting sugar and spice desexed. So we need to keep it really simple. In this instance, our behaviour target is just to report the cats to us. So let us know she has them, and then the next step, ideally, identify herself as their owner. Step number 5, we'll talk about that later as well. Okay, so now let's head to our second example. We're going to take a drive 10 hours northwest of Sydney to the very remote town of Walgett. This is what Walgett town looks like. It's a little tiny town in the middle of the bush. Some of the problems with cats are similar to what we encountered in Parramatta. We still have cat overpopulation, but what we also get is this constant trickle of unsocialised cats coming in from the bush to find food. We also have just very limited rehoming options because we're so remote. So problem mainly overpopulation. Again, our stakeholders are similar. The council's still key, as are local vets, but in this instance we also add the First Nations community organisations who really were our key to effectively engaging with this community. So the program is still targeting semi-owners as the main target of the human behaviour change approach, but this time let's talk about how we're also working with councils as a target audience. Up until now, the council has diligently responded to cats' nuisance complaints by trapping the nuisance cats and euthanising them. But now instead we want them to do something different. We want the council rangers instead to work with the semi-owners who are taking care of these cats, still trap them, still take them to the vet, but instead of euthanizing them, desex them and take them back to their carers who will continue looking after them as their owner. And in terms of monitoring our progress, we're going to track council cat activities. What we've done in Walgett. We've desexed almost 250 cats. All of these cats have been passively acquired by people who hadn't planned to become cat owners. For over 90% of the cats, it was their first ever visit to a vet. We've put a big emphasis on community engagement in Walgett, doing things like healthy pet days with our RSPCA outreach team, working really collaboratively with local stakeholders, working with the local vets, going to visit schools and talking about pet care and the importance of desexing with the kids. And we've seen really amazing results. So decreased nuisance complaints related to cats to the council by over 90%. This is what the Council Regulatory Officer, Paul Flint, has to say about the program. So complaints have reduced dramatically since this program of desexing began. Clearly the program has had a significant impact on unwanted litters and roaming cats in Walgett. And this is Paul with the vet from the local vets at Northwest Vets and with one of our participating cats. Monitoring progress is really important, and this is another way that we've done this in Walgett. We've tracked the number of cats arriving in the council pound. So you can see that in the years leading up to the start of the program, we're consistently having 100 plus cats coming into the pound. The year before the program started, 274 cats came into the pound, 274 cats were euthanized. Since we've started this approach of targeted desexing, and since Paul, the council ranger, has changed the way he's approached responding to nuisance complaints about cats, we've dramatically decreased the number of cats coming into the pound. So last financial year, 2 cats came into the pound and 2 cats were successfully rehomed. We have applied this approach now across about 10 different councils in New South Wales, where we've worked collaboratively with the council and the local vets to offer free desexing for people who are caring for stray cats in particular, or people who are overwhelmed with too many cats. And we're starting to see some really promising results. So seeing consistent reductions in the number of cat-related nuisance complaints to the councils and consistent reductions in the number of cats coming into pounds and also into our RSPCA shelters. These are some of the things we found to be particularly important when it comes to unowned cat management. We really want to engage all the stakeholders. As we saw in Parramatta, there are often multiple people involved with caring for unowned cats, and we want to get them all on board with the program. Cat semi-owners, especially ones like David in Parramatta, often face a range of quite complicated challenges that makes a case management approach invaluable. A big focus on customer service can also make all the difference. Often the clients accessing a program like ours are visiting the vet for the very first time, so we really want to go the extra mile to make that a really positive experience. And follow-up is crucial. We really need to be in these programs for the long term. So to recap our approach, first we need to understand the problem. What is contributing to the population of unowned cats in your area? Second, engage all of the stakeholders, especially the ones who can remove some of those barriers to getting those cats neutered. Number 3, we want to define who is our target audience, whose behaviour do we want to change. Number 4, we need to clearly define what exactly we want them to do. And then number 5, we need to monitor our progress to see if we need to change things, if things are working, or if we need to see what needs to change. We started to publish some of our research findings, which you can find online. And if you want to know more, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you.